the water laps softly against the stone walls of Venice, carrying the faint smell of salt, smoke, and something sharper, burnt sand turning to glass. Tonight, you are not in the comfort of your own bed. You are drifting backward, gently, into a time where the city does not glitter for tourists, but trembles with the heat of fire. It is the 15th century, and you are lying beneath the rafters of a workshop on the island of Murano, where men dream not of peace but of flames, wages, and survival. The air is heavy, stifling, even at night. Above you the furnaces never fully rest. They pulse and roar like the breathing of a monster that cannot die. You close your eyes and imagine sleep, but the heat pushes against your skin, sticky, relentless. You are not a guest here. You belong to the fire now. The city is silent except for the distant creak of gondolas, the cough of men who breathe in ash by day and night, and the low whisper of the lagoon. Venice is beautiful, yes, but beauty here is born of pain, sweat, and glass that cuts as easily as it dazzles. Tonight you sleep among the glassblowers. Tomorrow you will wake to their world. Rest now. The fire is waiting. You sleep in a room that is not a room so much as a pause in the workshop, an afterthought tucked behind the furnace wall where the heat refuses to let go. The ceiling is low, dark with smoke that will never wash out. Even the beams have learned to taste ash. Your mattress is a burlap sack, skin stretched over straw and ship's rope ends, something that whispers when you shift and then pokes you for daring to move. The straw remembers every back that has pressed it flat, every night of sweat and wheeze, and the dull throb of hands that have been burned so often they have stopped bothering to complain. You nest into it the way a shard finds its corner in a pile of broken glass, fitting but not safe. The furnace breathes on the other side of the wall. You can feel it, the way you can feel a dog sleeping on your feet, a constant, body-warm animal presence. It sighs when the door opens. It growls when wood is fed to it. It purrs when flames lick the arch, and the pots glow like moons. The sound pulls at your own breath until you are breathing with it, slow, hot, and shallow. In winter you pretend this is kindness, to sleep pressed to the rib of a living beast that keeps the cold off your bones. In summer it is a punishment with no judge in sight, only the sentence of heat. The night air trickles in from a high, warped window, but it gets tired before it reaches you. It leaves its salt taste on the sill, and gives up. You lie on your back and count the creaks. Wood shifts and speaks in the rafters with voices that know how to keep secrets. The men around you know how to keep secrets too. They snore with a proprietary stubbornness, each noise staked into the night like a peg into shook timber. One of them coughs in his sleep. It is a deep cough that hurts your own chest to hear, like tearing old fabric. Another murmurs a name you've never asked about, a small prayer wrapped like a nail inside that name. The straw whispers again, and somewhere a rat performs its careful mathematics along the edge of a sack. How much noise can it make without striking fear into a human heart? Your own heart settles into the rhythm of the furnace. Slow, slow again. The heat has a smell here, green wood giving up its sap, sweat cooling on wool, a sweet edge of warm metal, and always the mineral tang of sand held at the edge of change. Sometimes, for a flicker, you can taste the glass before it is glass, the dry, oceanless taste of a future that wants to be poured, spun, breathed into form. You breathe it, and it breathes you. Your bed is narrow, the space between bodies narrowed further by the invisible width of pride. You curl your fingers to your chest, the way you do when you are guarding a fragile cup. They throb. The pads are glossy with heat memory, the knuckles a geography of small injuries and pale scabs. You can see the ghost of today's burn in the gloom, a tender moon print across your thumb, where the iron kissed you quick, as a dog snapping at gnats. You think of the gaffer's laugh, short, barked, and then gone, as if the world is too hot to waste breath on. You think of the apprentice who broke a goblet at twilight and stood listening to the silence that follows a break, the way it is different from other silences, the way it fills the ears and the gaps between ribs. He will learn. The furnace doesn't love you, but it teaches. You let your eyes sag closed. When they open again, did you sleep? Time has moved an inch. The sliver of window is a dark rectangle that has grown a few stars at its corners, as if someone pushed their needle through the cloth of the sky and forgot to knot the thread. The lagoon makes its small throat sounds beyond the walls, soft water against stone. Somewhere, a gondola knocks lazily, the tap of wood on wood, the sound of a man whose night will be colder than yours. For a moment, you are grateful. For a moment, the gratitude melts and runs like thin glass, leaving a clear nothing where it was. The sleeping room smells like men who work near fire, and accept what that means. There is the faint, sour comfort of wool that has been rained on and dried by heat too fast to be kind. There is oil, lamp oil, hair oil, olive pressed and saved, and used again on boots that drink it like prayer. There is wine on someone's breath, a little sharp, a little cheap, the day's courage left over. Under it all, that chalk dust whisper of ash, that the air carries the way a mother carries a child, close, constant, without complaint. You inhale, ash inhabits you. You exhale, ash keeps its claim. Sometimes the night opens its fist, and you can feel the lagoon's cool fingers press lightly across your face. It makes a promise it can't keep. Tomorrow will be easier. The thought is silly and you almost laugh. But laughter would cost breath, and you have learned to save where you can. Instead, you let the promise sit on your lips for a moment, like the rim of a cup you don't own. Tomorrow will not be easier, but it will be yours again, in the same way yesterday was, and so you accept the bargain. From the other side of the wall, a small explosion. No, not explosion. A complaint. One of the pots shifting its mood. Glass turning over in its sleep like a heavy man. The master will notice, he always does. His noticing is a kind of weather that moves through the workshop, quick cutting and then gone, leaving a clear sky. He sleeps too within reach of the furnace, because everyone here belongs to the same god. You have seen him in the mornings, his hair crisped at the ends, his eyes bright with that particular meanness that only exhaustion can birth. You do not dislike him. In this heat, every face becomes a mirror for your own. You turn and the mattress betrays you with a loud straw crackle. A neighbour's breath catches and then resumes. You find the edge of a wool blanket that is more whole than cloth and pull it across your ribs. It holds the heat the way the furnace holds it, too much in some places, not enough in others. Your hip bone complains again. The straw complains back. The argument is old. No one is going to win. You slide a hand under your neck and finally, as always, find the one soft place at the centre of your collar where your skin still feels like it belongs to you. You think of the day that just ended. Your mind tries to catalogue it. But the pieces are all the same shape and colour. A gather of heat, a roll, a blow, the spin and shimmer of the thing longing to become clear. The workshop is a theatre without applause. The only audience is the fire. And it claps too loudly. Always. Still there was a moment, brief as a blink, when a thin rim caught the light like a moon flown close, and you felt the pride rise in you like steam. No one saw it. You whispered the word good to yourself, and turned your face to the furnace, so no one would see the bend of your mouth. The men around you breathe in their separate ways. You could name them by their sounds. The long whistle of the one who broke his nose, the tiny hum of the old man whose throat sings to itself, the regular bellows of the youth who still sleeps like a boy. Each breath is proof of something that matters more than pride, that you are alive and paid and counted, that your body remains your body in the morning. You are not foolish enough to believe that is guaranteed. Everyone here keeps a small ledger in their chest that records burns and breaks and days survived. There is no ink, only memory and the little scars that stand in for numbers. You dream sometimes that the furnace goes out. In the dream, the silence is a scream. The workshop cools, the heat lifts like a bad temper finally spent, and everyone looks at one another as if stripped. No glow, no roar, no proof. The master stands very still. Someone tries to laugh, and the sound shatters. You wake from that dream with the furnace still breathing, and the relief makes you smile in the dark, an ugly private smile that would look strange in daylight. Strange to be comforted by a thing that burns you. Strange and exactly true. Sleep comes in small cups here, sipped, not poured. You take a mouthful, hold it on your tongue, swallow, then the furnace coughs or a man turns and sleep clatters out of your hands and rolls under a bench. You reach for it again, and every time you catch it, the cup is lighter, the taste thinner. It is enough. It has to be. Tomorrow has already laid itself out like tools on the bench. The punty, the shears, the paddle, the wet newspaper that will steam when you touch it. Your hands open and close in the dark, remembering the shape of each. The memory hurts and soothes, both at once. You let it. From the window, a crank of sound, rope over wood, water against hull. The tide is doing its mathematics. The same as the rat. The city moves while you lie still. You imagine, because it helps, that someone across the lagoon is also not sleeping. Maybe a woman listening to the scrape of a neighbour's chair and the argument of cats. Maybe a child counting the number of times the bell in the campanile pretends to be a heartbeat. Maybe the Doge himself, sweating under velvet, remembering a time when he could drink wine without tasting metal. The thought is unkind. It makes you feel kindly. You exhale, the air in the room reclaims your breath and makes it part of the general heat. There is a lull now. Even the furnace seems to drift. In that slackness, you visit the small private church in your chest, the one with a cracked fresco and a floor that stays cool even when the world is on fire. You kneel there and say the prayer you always say, not for mercy, not for luck, but for steadiness. Let the gather hold. Let the lips stay even. Let your hands be sure, if nothing else in the day is. Let you take one moment and keep it, like a clear bead in a pocket, to finger on the walk home. You do not ask for more. You have learned the mathematics of asking, how much noise can you make without striking fear into a god's heart? A mosquito sketches nonsense over your cheek. You slap at it too slow. Somewhere a pot settles and ticks. The wall is warm as a chest. If you press your ear to it, you can hear the sound glass makes in its not yetness, a hush like a crowd waiting. You were a child once and you waited too. Waited for your name to be called, for your first cup to cool, for your first mistake to stop ringing in the room. The waiting never ends. It only changes its clothes. You are almost asleep when a memory rises, unkind as a blister. A ship in the basin last winter, its hull black as the inside of a kiln, its sailors wrapped tight as mummies. They came for glass, and left with it stacked like winter bread. You watched them push off and thought, the world is made of water and fire, and the narrow bridge between them is a human hand. The thought felt too heavy for you then. Tonight it fits. You let it hold your weight. The straw whispers again. Your hip makes peace with its bone. Your hands uncurl. The furnace breathes, and you breathe. The night lays its damp cloth across your chest. The lagoon counts to itself. One ripple, two, again, just like yesterday. The heat and the dark and the salt and the ash conspire to make you small and safe for an hour. You let them. And if the rats do their arithmetic along the sacks, and if a man coughs like a door opening onto winter, and if the furnace speaks its bright wordless sermon, none of it matters for this inch of time. You have carved out a small, cool hollow in a night that is mostly fire. It is enough. It is more than enough. Sleep presses its mouth to your ear and breathes. You turn your face toward it, like glass toward a flame, and soften. The room leans closer. The furnace quiets. The straw forgets you for a moment and becomes only a field far away. The ocean of tomorrow lifts and falls, and you float on it without sinking, without purpose, without fear. Rest now. You wake before the sun remembers Venice, before the gulls begin their vicious morning arguments over scraps of fish guts, before the gondoliers sing themselves awake. What wakes you isn't a sound but a feeling. a damp weight clinging to your skin, as though the night itself has decided to hold on. You peel the wool blanket from your chest, and immediately the air presses back in, thick with smoke and brine, until you realise the blanket was not keeping you warm, but merely participating in the performance of comfort. Your clothes are waiting for you on the wooden peg, hammered into the furnace wall. They reek. There is no other word for it. Sweat has seeped so deeply into the coarse wool tunic that it feels like the garment is alive, breathing faintly with the smell of your days, your burns, your labour. You do not have a wardrobe. You have this, a heavy wool tunic the colour of ash, a pair of hose patched more times than you can count, a linen shirt that no longer recalls the whiteness it once boasted, and a pair of boots that seem to weep tar when the heat gets into them. You pull the linen shirt over your head, and it scratches like nettles. The collar rubs the skin raw where yesterday's sweat dried into a crust. You try not to think about how many days you have worn it without washing. Washing would mean removing it from your body. And water here is not for you, not for cloth. It is for the city, for the lagoon, for the merchants and the fishmongers who carry silver and copper. You are a glassblower's hand, not a patrician's body. A shirt like this will dissolve into threads long before soap is wasted on it. The hose cling damp to your legs. They were once dyed a shade of blue, but now they hover between mould and sky, worn to patches thin enough to see your own knees shining through. One knee is scarred with the faint ridges of an old burn, an accident when molten glass fell like a sunbeam onto your skin. The hose didn't save you then. They save nothing. They are fabric only by stubborn definition, held together by stitches that bite into your thighs where you knelt too long. You tug them higher and tie them with cord, a clumsy ritual performed by every man in the room at this hour. The tunic is next. Heavy, always heavier than you remember. It slides over your shoulders and immediately drags your spine into the posture of a worker, stooped, weighted, ready to obey the furnace. Wool fibres crawl along your arms, itching, but the itch fades into something dull once the sweat begins again. You belt it with leather, cracked and stiff, the buckle biting a scar into your hip where it has bitten before. You notice the hole you've used for weeks is stretching wide, the leather yielding to your own ribs slowly shrinking under the heat. Your boots wait like open mouths. Their soles are soft where they should be hard, split where they should be whole. The furnace has softened them over months, turning them into something like wax, pliable but cruel. You force your feet in, toes curling against seams that cut, heels pushing against leather that never quite learn the shape of you. When you walk, they squeal faintly, as though complaining about their lot, but they hold. They always hold, even when your own legs do not. And then there is the scarf. A strip of linen, dirt-stained stiff with salt. You wrap it around your neck, not for vanity, but for survival. The scarf drinks sweat before it can run into your eyes, and sometimes, if you are lucky, it filters the ash before it scours your throat. Today it smells of yesterday's fire, a thin memory of smoke that clings even in dreams. You knot it tight, and in that knot lies every small act of defiance. You will protect yourself, even if only by this threadbare strip. No socks. You haven't owned socks in years, and in truth, no one here bothers. Feet blister and mend. Skin hardens. Blood dries in boots. Socks would rot quicker than hope in this place. You look around. Everyone else is dressing the same way. Variations on the same theme of wool and ash. The young apprentice tugs his hose too high and tears the seam at the thigh. He swears under his breath a curse so old it no longer carries weight. The old master pulls his tunic down and ties his belt with the weary precision of a man who has done it 10,000 mornings, each identical to the last. No one looks at anyone else. Clothing here is not expression, it is armour against splinters, sparks, and the daily truth of fire. And yet, sometimes in rare light, you catch something beautiful in it. A patch mended with bright red thread, a sleeve dyed accidentally by spilled pigment, a glint of copper dust clinging to the hem. These are the closest things to jewels you will ever wear. Your clothing becomes part of you, stitched to your skin by sweat and memory, and when you strip it away at night, you feel naked not in body but in spirit. You tug at the belt again. Your fingers linger on the leather. You imagine, because imagination is free, that once, long ago, a nobleman in this city dressed in silk. He tugged his sleeves and admired himself in polished glass, perhaps even glass you made. You try to summon the image, but silk does not stay in your mind. Wool does. The itch, the heat, the smell. The furnace is waking now, hissing and popping as if amused by the sight of you fumbling with your hose. The air grows hotter by the minute. You know that by midday this same tunic will be a wet rag plastered to your chest, the scarf soaked, your hose sticking to your thighs, until they peel away with every movement. And you know you will not change them. You will wear this again tomorrow, and the day after, until it rots away, or you do. You smooth your tunic, tug your scarf, tighten your belt. The others are doing the same. In silence. The ritual is complete. You are dressed in the uniform of men who make beauty out of pain, who give the world clear goblets and bright beads at the cost of their own lungs. The uniform of ghosts still alive. And as the first gull shrieks over the lagoon, mocking, you wonder if the city ever sees you when they hold your glass to the light. Do they see the wool, the ash, the sweat woven into every curve? Do they see you standing here, wrapped in discomfort, clothed in heat, stitched into invisibility? You doubt it. But the furnace does. The furnace always sees. And now, you are ready. Rest for a moment before the day consumes you whole. You rise when the furnace tells you to, not when the sun decides. Light doesn't matter here. Heat does. The moment you sit up, your scalp prickles with it. It is not a gentle warmth, but a living thing, breathing against your face like a dog, nosing you awake. The floor is already hot enough to sting your bare feet. You reach for your boots, still damp with yesterday's sweat, and slide them on with a grimace. They squelch faintly, leather sighing in protest, but they cling to you the way everything here does. Cloth, ash, heat, obligation. The morning begins without ceremony. No bells for you, no prayer songs, no gentle calls from a mother. Just coughing, a chorus of wet, rattling coughs echoing in the dark, each man expelling a night's worth of ash from his chest. Some spit black phlegm into rags. Others hawk into corners, too tired to care. You join them, throat scraped raw, and it burns worse than any fire you touch during the day. The air is thick and acrid, so even your first breath of the morning tastes like iron filings and burnt sand. Water waits in a clay jug by the wall. It is tepid, cloudy, carrying the memory of the lagoon. You drink anyway. The cup is shared, wood rim worn smooth from too many lips. When you swallow, you feel grit slide down your throat, a reminder that the city's water, like its beauty, is never as pure as it pretends. But you are grateful all the same. The jug empties quickly and no one argues about who had more. Thirst has a way of settling disputes before they start. There is no washing. Not really. A rag dipped into that same water is dragged across your face. It leaves you wetter, not cleaner. The salt lingers. The smoke remains. Your shirt soaks it up and holds the lagoon smell close to your skin. For a moment, though, the touch is cool, and that moment is enough. You rub your eyes with knuckles cracked from yesterday's burns and wipe your mouth, knowing the taste of smoke will return before your next breath. Breakfast is not yet. That comes later, after the furnace has had its fill. Instead, the ritual is work before work. The fire never sleeps, and so the men who tend it cannot either. One rises, shuffles across the stone floor, and begins to feed wood into the mouth of the furnace. The flames leap instantly, greedy as always, and the room shifts from hot to unbearable. Shadows crawl up the walls like creatures trying to escape. You stand in the half-light, scarf tied tight, feeling sweat trickle before the day has even properly begun. Someone mutters a prayer, not to God, not even to the saints, but to the furnace itself. A small plea: hold steady, burn true, do not crack the pots today. No one laughs. Everyone believes a little, even if they don't say it. The fire is the first mouth to be fed, the first master to be appeased. All rituals bow to it. You stretch your hands, flexing fingers that ache with yesterday's rhythm. The skin feels too tight, like it has been pulled over someone else's bones. Each finger carries its own memory. Blisters that healed crooked, nails blackened from strikes of iron. The rigid feel of burns that cooled into scars. You clench them into fists, then open them again, rehearsing the only prayer that matters: steady hands, steady glass. Around you, the men stir. They tie belts, cough again, curse under their breath as if conversation has been outlawed by the fire. An apprentice stumbles, still half asleep, and earns a sharp look from the master. No words, just that look, enough to remind him that mistakes are remembered longer than successes here. You learned the same lesson once. Perhaps you still are learning it. The smell thickens: charred wood, sweat, wool, hot stone. Your body remembers before your mind does. This is what morning is. This is what morning always is. No birdsong, no dew, no soft light creeping across fields. Only ash settling on your tongue, and the glow of fire on your face. You glance at the window high in the wall. Outside, the lagoon must be painted in pale grey light by now. The gondoliers stirring, the fishmongers cursing their luck. But you do not see it. The furnace steals the morning from you, keeps it locked away behind smoke and heat. And so you begin the day, with a ritual that is not yours but belongs to the fire. Cough, drink, wipe your face, feed the beast, stretch your hands. There is nothing holy in it. And yet it feels like liturgy all the same. The repetition, the surrender, the way every man around you knows the steps without speaking them aloud. When the first hiss of molten sand reaches your ears, you close your eyes. You are ready now, or as ready as anyone can be. The day has begun. Rest your breath a moment longer before it claims you whole. You know what comes next, though you wish you didn't. The human body does not wait for art or for fire. It insists on its own rituals, and here in the glassblower's world, relieving yourself is less a private act than a shared humiliation, stitched into the fabric of daily life like burns and coughing fits. The latrine squats outside the workshop, closer to the water than to decency. You step out into the faint grey of dawn, and the air is cool enough that for 1 second you almost feel clean. The lagoon breathes salt into your nose, the kind of breath that might in another life feel refreshing. But even here, Venice cannot resist reminding you of its rot. The canals stink of fish guts, human waste, and the sour tang of stagnant tides. You tread carefully, boots slipping on stone slick with algae, trying not to think about what you're walking through. The latrine itself is a wooden shack, leaning against the wall like it has given up. The boards are warped, swollen from years of damp, and the door doesn't close so much as it decides not to fall off its hinges today. You duck inside, and the smell slams into you. Ammonia, bile, sour decay. The layered ghosts of every man who has squatted here before you. The pit below is bottomless in imagination, if not in reality, a black soup of things you'd rather not name. You've long stopped being shocked by it. Instead, you treat it as another furnace, an unavoidable mouth that must be fed. You hike up your hose and pray to balance on the wooden slats, hoping they hold your weight. They creak, groan, mutter threats. You have heard stories of men falling through, swallowed whole by the waste, rescued only to carry the stench on their skin until the day they died. You believe the stories. In Venice, filth does not forgive. There is no paper, of course. Not even a rag unless you bring your own. And you don't. You use what everyone uses, your hand. A scrap of straw if you're lucky. And the lagoon's water if you're brave. You choose quickly, because lingering here means breathing more of the air, And breathing more of the air means tasting it on your tongue. The stench clings to your teeth, settles into your hair, slides beneath your fingernails. You've convinced yourself you can smell it for hours after, even when you've returned to the furnace, as though the pit has claimed you as one of its own. Men joke here, but the jokes are sharp, cruel. Someone passes by and bangs the shack with a stick, laughing when the boards rattle and you curse. Another shouts your name, just to hear it muffled, just to remind you that there is no privacy, not even in this. But no one laughs too loud, because everyone takes their turn. The furnace binds you in one way, the latrine binds you in another, equal in filth, equal in stink, equal in the way your body betrays you. The sound is the worst part, plops and splashes echoing up the shaft, magnified by the void. It is grotesque, almost comical, and yet you cannot laugh because it is you. You are the noise, you are the smell, you are the creature hunched in the dark, feeding the pit. The rats scurry below, bold as priests waiting for scraps. You try not to picture their slick bodies sliding over what you've just given up. You finish quickly, wipe with a twist of straw that scratches more than it cleans, and step out into the half-light. The air outside feels like a reprieve, even though it carries its own rank perfume of canals and fishmongers. You breathe deep, anyway. Anything is better than the pit. The scarf at your neck soaks up your sweat, but you swear it also soaks up the stink, carrying it with you back into the day. You tug it tighter, as if strangling yourself with linen might protect you. The lagoon laps against the stone. You lean for a moment, rinsing your hands in water that looks innocent from a distance. Up close, wears a green skin of scum. You know this water carries its own sickness, its own invisible teeth. You rinse anyway because not rinsing feels worse. You rub your palms against your hose, drying them with the same cloth that will rub your thighs raw in the furnace heat. You accept it. You always accept it. And when you step back inside the workshop, the men look at you as though nothing has happened, because nothing has. They will take their turn. They will smell the same, wash the same, return to the same heat. It is not shame here. It is routine. The furnace does not care, and the city itself reeks enough to hide your own contribution. You are not an exception. You are a participant. You settle back on the bench, adjust your boots, cough once more. The fire cracks and spits like it is laughing at you, and you realise with a dull weight in your chest that this is not the worst part of your day, not even close. So you sit, sweat already dripping, hands raw, stomach twisting toward the meagre breakfast ahead. The furnace hums louder, ready for its turn to be fed. And you wait, because here, waiting is all you ever do. Now breathe slowly, because the worst smells fade, even if only for a while. The men drift toward food the way sparks drift upward. Inevitable, small, and not nearly enough to warm the sky. Breakfast in this place isn't a bell-rung event, but a sag in the shoulder, a collective adjusting of belts, a shared noticing that the ache in your stomach has moved from complaint to insistence. There is no table waiting, no cloth, no clatter of fine plates, only a bench scorched pale where bowls have lived their short, hard lives, and a low shelf that remembers the weight of bread the way your palms remember the shape of tools. The bread arrives as a dark, stubborn thing, yesterday's loaf with today's temper. Its crust has the personality of old wood. It cracks where it pleases and refuses where it doesn't. You take your portion with 2 hands because one is a dare, and the master's eye counts fingers more keenly than loaves. The heel is yours again, always the heel, always that dense, flinty crescent that learns your teeth and asks for blood. When you press your thumb to it, flour dust lifts in a little ghost, as if the loaf still believes it might be dough again. It won't. Salted fish shows its silver in a wooden bowl, small bodies laid down like commas in a sentence that never ends. Anchovies or something their cousins would recognise, meat turned into a memory by salt until it's more sting than flesh. You pick the least skeletal one, the strip whose salt has crusted into a white frost along the spine, and you smell the lagoon all at once, rot and brine, the clean cut of morning wind, the long shadow of nets strung like prayers. Your tongue tightens in your mouth preemptively. It knows what salt does. It erases everything else. There is a jug, too. Wine, though that word is doing heavy labour. The colour is the honest pink of a bruise, and water has been coaxed into it until both liquids are ashamed of the company. Still, it is wet, and it is not the lagoon, and the wooden cups lean toward it like men to shade. You tilt yours carefully, and the wine moves awkwardly, more like a thought than a drink. It smells faintly of last year's sun, and this morning's barrel. Your mouth waters in a way that feels like betrayal. You learn to eat here by calculation. The bread comes first, not into your mouth. Not yet, but into the steam that hovers above the furnace mouth. You hold it near enough for the crust to remember softness, far enough so it doesn't harden into coal. The air between bread and flame becomes a thin country where mercy still lives, and you keep your hands there, measuring the distance by the sting on your knuckles. Someone once told you to use the back of your hand, not the palm, old kitchen wisdom borrowed from a world with kitchens. You do it without thinking now. The heat licks, the crust submits. The sting travels up to your elbow in a line of light. You turn the heel. You turn your face away. You breathe through linen and pretend it helps. When the bread yields a little, you dip its nose in the wine. The crust darkens to a solemn red, and for a breath the loaf smells like grapes instead of work. You put it to your mouth. Your teeth meet resistance. Then a sudden surrender. The crumb inside is damp and cool at the same time, like a cellar you have never had. Your gums object. The edge of crust cuts a thin line that will sting later when the salt arrives, but you keep going. Bread keeps you. Bread has always kept you. Today it will perform the miracle again. The fish is a lesson you relearn daily. You press it with your thumb and feel the flesh separate from the hard grammar of bones. The skin gives with a wet sigh. You pull a strip free, and it glints in the low light like something valuable, like something promised. It tastes like a dare. Salt steps into the room first, talks over everyone else, makes a speech about survival and debt. Behind it, very far behind, the fish remembers being an animal. Your tongue listens politely, and then fills with thirst. You chew. Your jaw is a hinge that has outlived whatever door it belonged to. Around you, men perform the same mathematics. A wedge of cheese the colour of old ivory appears, edges hard as conscience. It smells of the inside of a cave and a little of feet, which in this place is a kind of luxury. A sliver is shaved with a knife that has cut rope and reeds, and once, memorably, your thumb. The sliver collapses on the tongue like a held breath released. Someone passes a jar with oil swimming gold at the top, sediment sunk like last year's mistakes. You drag the softened bread across it, and for a second the oil pretends to be sunshine. It slicks your lip and coins your mouth with warmth. You swallow quickly, afraid of wanting more. The apprentice has an onion. He peels it with reverence, the papery skin whispering into the ash. He slices it into coins with care disproportionate to its worth, and each piece releases a wet, green smell that cuts through the wool and the smoke, the way truth sometimes cuts through a lie. He hands you 2 slices with the generosity of a man giving away hours of his day. You lay one on your bread, the rings nested like a small, complicated secret, and you bite. Sweetness, heat, a sting that goes up your nose and makes your eyes water in a way you can pretend is the onion's fault. Your mouth briefly is awake. You become briefly a person with taste. Someone cracks a joke about saints and fish guts, about how Saint whoever must have had a stronger stomach than any of you, and the laugh that follows is gentler than most. You let it warm you. Laughter here is usually a knife, but this one is a wooden spoon. It stirs without cutting. You look at the men's faces and see what you always see at breakfast. Relief first, then the quietness that comes after a small mercy. The master chews with his head bent the way he does when he's counting. The old man with the humming throat holds his cup with 2 hands, more to feel the wood than to drink. The boy tries to hide how quickly he eats. The furnace watches you all. Bread is not only food, it is time measured in crumbs. You make yours last. You bite and wait. You press the next bite into the wine, and wait again, letting it think about being soft. The stomach doesn't understand patience, but the mouth can be taught. You wrap a fish salt whisper around the next piece. You set a coin of onion on the last one, and hold it up to the light because it looks like a tiny window, and you have always liked windows. You eat it fast, because beauty here is dangerous. People notice what you notice, and noticing slows the work. There are mornings when a fig appears, wrinkled as the day will be, or a handful of chestnuts in the cold months, the kind that go flowery and sweet when someone rolls them near the heat while the master looks away. Today there is an orange peel somewhere in the room, a bit of alchemy from someone who knows a merchant, and the air turns its head at the smell like a dog called by an old name. You don't see the orange. You don't need to. The smell itself is enough to loan you the memory of sweetness, to let you pretend the juice sticks to your thumb. Your body says thank you for the lie. You drink again. Careful. The wine has become more itself in the cup, which is to say more honest about its failings. It is warm now, having sat in the same room as you, and it wears heat badly. Still, it lifts a thin veil from your eyes and lays it across the ache in your forearms. You imagine recklessly another mouthful, then another, the way you imagine a different life sometimes. In careful, rationed sips, you stop before they become dangerous. You hand the jug to the next man, and the jug does not complain. Someone blesses the bread out loud, but it isn't God he's talking to. It's the baker, the grain, the hand that milled, the man who risked the tide to bring flour through a storm. He is blessing the chain that lets a crust end in your mouth. No one answers. Blessings here are not debts. They are acknowledgements, like the small nod you give a good tool before you use it. And yes, there is a bee, a confused wanderer from whatever lives outside this heat. It taps its fragile head against the jug, finds nothing, and leaves you the gift of remembering that sweetness is a thing with wings. You follow it with your eyes until it makes a mistake and drifts too near the furnace throat. Heat catches it mid-thought. It veers, wavers, disappears. You feel the echo of it in your chest, a little sorrow you can't afford. You take another bite. The sorrow dissolves in salt. Your stomach does the low animal thing it always does when fed. It loosens. Your shoulders drop an inch. The ash on your tongue recedes like a tide, leaving behind the strange, clean taste of oil and onion. You find yourself wanting dangerous word for coffee you do not know, for fruit you have never had, for honey you have never watched fall slow as glass. You want a table and a chair with a back and a spoon that knows only mouths and not rope. You want these things for the length of a blink, and then you carefully do not want them. The master wipes his thumb on his tunic, leaving a dark coin of oil that will mark him all day. He stands. His cup knocks wood with that round sound. That means the day has begun in a way nothing else can argue with. Men rise like ideas that have been agreed upon. The bench breathes out. Your hunger is not gone, but it has been persuaded. That is enough. There will be later something that calls itself dinner. Between now and then lies glass, and grace if you can find it. You tuck the last crumb into your cheek, like contraband. It softens there, tiny bread you carry like a prayer, and dissolves on your tongue during the first stretch of labour, when words are too expensive, and breath is the only coin. Your hands, those small stubborn animals, flex and find their sense. The scarf at your neck is wet already. It will save you and betray you all day, and you will forgive it every time. Before you turn, you look at the shelf where the loaves live. It is empty except for flour and a knot of string. You feel the simplest gratitude, the kind that sits low and doesn't speak. There was something to eat. It wasn't nothing. In this room, not nothing is often the nearest door to grace. The furnace inhales. a long, theatrical breath, and the room's few shadows crawl under the benches and pretend to be safe. You put your cup down. Your body adjusts itself into the shape the day will require. Your mouth, salty and oiled, forgets to complain. You could swear your heart beats a little slower, in rhythm now with the old brick beast that wants all of you and will settle for most. Again the bread, again the heat, again the men who will stand beside you until the light decides to leave. It is always again here. It is always still. Hold that last warmth under your ribs a moment longer, that small, soft weight of having eaten, and let your breath lengthen the way glass lengthens under a steady pull. Rest now, just for a heartbeat, before the work makes a fire of you. The furnace decides when your day truly begins. Not the sun, not the bells that echo across the lagoon, not even your own aching body. The furnace, its roar has changed, deepened into that note you recognize. Hot enough, angry enough, ready. You stand with the others, scarf tight, eyes squinting against the first blast of brightness as the door swings open. The workshop is instantly transformed. Shadows crushed into corners, colours stripped away, everything bathed in the orange-white glow of molten fire. It feels less like a room, and more like the inside of a lung you are all trapped in, inhaling, exhaling, never quite your own. The master moves first, as always. His hand grips the long iron blowpipe like it's an extension of his arm, and you watch as he dips it into the glowing crucible. The sand within has melted into a honey-bright mass, liquid light that clings to the pipe's end. He turns it, steady and slow, and the gather coils like a beast pretending to sleep. You know this dance well, though your hands still tremble each time it's your turn. The glass is not a thing you control. It is a creature you coax, a temper you beg. Your role begins with the weight. The blowpipe lands in your palms, heavier than memory warns, heat crawling up the shaft as if to test you. The metal burns even through the calluses that have grown over, burns from yesterday, last week, last year. You spin it, rolling the molten ball in its cradle, keeping it even, keeping it alive. If you stop, if you falter, gravity will take it, and the master will remind you how mistakes sound, sharp, brief, and cruel. The punishment isn't just his voice. It's the shame, the way the fire seems to laugh at you when glass shatters into nothing. The sweat begins instantly. It rolls down your temples, trickles into your eyes until the scarf catches it, stinging the corners, making you blink through heat-hazed tears. Your tunic darkens at the chest and spine. Your boots squelch as they drink the overflow from your own body. You are already exhausted, and the day has only drawn its first breath. You blow when told. The pipe at your lips tastes of metal and soot, and you fill it with your breath, long and steady. The glass swells at the end, glowing brighter, taking shape with a softness that mocks you. Too much, and it thins to weakness. Too little, and it sits squat and ugly, stubborn against your wishes. Your breath is not yours here. It belongs to the vessel. You give it away and watch it trap your life inside its glowing skin. You imagine each piece of glass as a thief carrying a fragment of your soul into someone else's hands. Around you, the rhythm is constant. Men roll, blow, cut, paddle, shape. The sound is a strange music. The hiss of wet newspaper folded around molten form, the scrape of iron on stone, the soft puff of lungs, the occasional sharp crack when something fails. The cracks always silence the room. Just for a beat. Glass is fragile, yes, but failure is heavier than glass. The silence holds shame in it, and then the rhythm begins again as though nothing happened. The tools are simple, brutal extensions of the fire's will, shears that bite like jaws, paddles black and smooth with years of steam, tongs that leave their memory pressed into glowing walls. Each tool burns your fingers in its own way. Each one teaches you lessons you can't forget because they carve themselves into your skin. You work with them, not against them, because resistance here is as pointless as resisting tide or plague. The master barks occasionally, Not words, but sounds, guttural and sharp, like commands you'd use on a stubborn mule. Everyone understands. Everyone obeys. You don't resent him. Not really. He obeys the fire too, and perhaps it is harsher with him than with anyone else. His eyes are red-rimmed. His voice cracked from years of shouting over the roar. His skin a map of burns drawn in pale relief. If he has pride, it is pride in survival. If he has joy, it is fleeting as the shimmer of hot glass cooling to dull. And still there are moments. Small flashes when the thing at the end of your pipe catches the light just right, when it spins smooth as a planet, when your breath inside it feels steady, eternal. Those are the only miracles you'll ever claim. You don't tell anyone, you don't even smile, but your hands know, and your chest remembers, and the faintest trace of that miracle lingers in you long after the piece is carried away. The hours stretch, like molten glass pulled thin. Your back aches from stooping, your shoulders burn from spinning the pipe, your lungs rasp as ash scratches at the inside of your ribs. Time becomes measured not by bells but by burns. This blister means an hour, this ache means 2, this thirst means nearly halfway. The scarf at your throat is a wet rope by now, and you tug it tighter anyway, clinging to the illusion of protection. You steal sips of water between turns, each one a negotiation with your own stomach. Too much, and you'll retch from the heat. Too little, and you'll crumple before noon. The water tastes of clay and wood, but in that moment it is divine. You share the jug without speaking. The ritual is silent. Eyes meet only briefly. Words cost too much when the fire already taxes your lungs. The apprentice falters. His gather slumps uneven, bulging on one side like a swollen cheek. The master is on him instantly. A sharp cuff to the ear, a barked syllable. The boy flushes red, not from heat, but from shame. You feel it too, as though the strike landed on your own head. You remember your own mistakes, how glass once fell from your pipe like molten rain, how it seared your foot through leather and left you limping for weeks. You remember the silence then, the way no one looked at you. The silence hurt more than the burn. The work doesn't pause. It can't. The fire consumes wood whether you are ready or not. The pots glow, the crucible waits, and your body must keep pace. You roll, blow, shape, repeat. Hours vanish into sweat and flame, until you are no longer sure where you end and the fire begins. You think sometimes that you are being hollowed out, turned into glass yourself, transparent, fragile, filled only with borrowed breath. And yet, when you set a finished piece aside, a goblet, a bead, a window pane, you feel a faint pride you dare not voice. This, you think, might survive longer than you will. This might end up in the Doge's palace, or in a church where saints stare down through coloured light, or in a merchant's chest carried far across the sea. They will see beauty. They will never see you. But you are inside it, hidden, anonymous, trapped in the curve of glass. Your arms tremble. Your throat stings. Your heart thuds heavy, slow, the way it always does in this heat. And still you keep moving, because the furnace is hungry and you are its servant, and there is no stopping until it says so. The work claims you, body and breath. The day folds itself around you like molten sand taking the shape of the mould. You do not resist. Resistance here is for fools. You surrender again and again until the surrender becomes indistinguishable from survival. The furnace exhales. You exhale with it. The rhythm continues. Always again, always still. And somewhere in that rhythm you find the smallest crack of peace, fragile as glass, and just as ready to shatter. Rest now, just for a breath, before the furnace demands more of you. The fire takes your breath, the work takes your body, but it is people, the ones who own the furnaces, the ones who sip from the cups you make, who take the rest of you. You are a glass blower, which in Venice is both a mark of honour and a cage. They call you maestro when they want to flatter, but they never forget that your hands are chained to Moreno, that your craft is too precious to let wander. The Republic has decreed it. No glassblower may leave. You are both respected and imprisoned, gilded with ash. The master treats you as the furnace does, without pity, without pause. His voice is short, not because he lacks words, but because words take air, and air is always scarce. When he speaks, it is usually to correct, to cut, to remind you that the glass remembers every hesitation. If he praises, it is only with silence. Your piece passed muster, so he does not spit it into shards. Silence is the kindest thing he gives you. Among your fellows, treatment is a kind of rough fraternity, though it carries the bitterness of men who all scrape against the same stone. They cough beside you, bleed beside you, laugh cruelly at your mistakes, and expect you to laugh cruelly at theirs. A man who falters is mocked, but mockery is just another language for fear. Better to wound with words than to admit you all share the same weakness. And yet, when one of you burns too badly, when flesh bubbles on an arm or a hand swells red and useless, there is a hush in the room, a quiet shifting of weight. Someone will tear cloth for a bandage. Someone will pour wine over the wound. No one will speak of it after. Care here is as sharp and wordless as cruelty. The apprentices are treated worst, of course. Boys with more skin than callus, their fingers blistering new each week. They are shouted at, cuffed, made to fetch water until their legs shake. The masters keep them in check with scorn, and the older men with jokes sharp enough to leave cuts deeper than burns. And yet you remember, you were one of them once, scalded by both furnace and tongue. You know that every scar, every insult, every laugh at your expense was simply the toll you paid for belonging. Survival here means you eventually laugh with them, not at them. Until then you endure. The nobles treat you differently, like curiosities, like necessary inconveniences. They walk through the workshops sometimes, the doge's men and the wealthy merchants, their silk sleeves brushing soot, their perfumed mouths curled against the heat. They look at you but do not see you. They see the goblet, the chandelier, the mirror. They see beauty pulled from fire, and they imagine it has appeared effortlessly, that your lungs and your sweat are not stitched into its shine. You bow because you must. You listen to their compliments, which are not meant for you but for themselves, for their own taste in demanding such splendour. You stand, dripping and filthy, while they lift a piece to the light and marvel. They never lift their eyes to yours. The women of Venice treat you like smoke, unavoidable, faintly unpleasant, but necessary. They carry your glass in their homes, sip from it at feasts, stare into polished mirrors that you or someone like you crafted. Perhaps they know you exist. Perhaps they don't. Once, walking back from the furnace, you caught a woman glancing at you, your tunic plastered to your chest, your hands blackened, your face red with heat. It was not desire in her eyes, but something more complicated. Curiosity, maybe even pity. You looked away quickly. Pity here is harder to bear than cruelty. The church treats you as it treats everyone, with demands for coin, for offerings, for proof of piety. You stand in the chapel with ash still clinging to your scalp, and the priest raises a goblet of glass you may have shaped yourself, blessing wine that tastes no different from the sour stuff in your workshop. You kneel because you must, though your knees crack like old timbers and your head swims from smoke. You hear sermons about purity while the sweat dries foul on your body, about heaven while the furnace roars behind your eyelids. You wonder sometimes if hell could be much different from Murano. And yet, there are moments. A neighbour who shares bread when your own shelf is bare. A fellow glassblower who mutters a warning when your gather leans too far. An old man who claps your shoulder, brief and rough. After you shape a piece well, the kindnesses are small, so small they almost vanish in the smoke. But they are there, flickering like sparks in the air, brief proofs that people can treat you as more than another pair of lungs to feed the fire. Mostly, though, you are invisible. You are the ash that settles on the nobleman's velvet. and is brushed away without thought. You are the cough that echoes through a dark room and is forgotten by morning. You are the hand that made the cup, but never the name that drinks from it. You are treated the way glass is before it hardens, shaped, used, and forgotten. Still, you rise each morning, bow when required, laugh when demanded, endure when ordered. You let them treat you as smoke, as ash, as shadow, because here in Moreno, survival is not about how people treat you, it is about how you endure being treated at all. And when the furnace exhales again, louder, hungrier, you turn back toward it. Because in the end, it is the only thing that treats you with honesty. The fire does not flatter. The fire does not pity. The fire only takes. Rest a moment and breathe before it takes again. The furnace makes you sweat out every part of yourself that could pretend to be clean. From the moment you wake to the moment you collapse, your body is a damp rag steeped in smoke and brine. The heat opens your pores and pours ash straight into them, grinding grit into the hollows of your skin, until even your dreams feel dirty. You do not know the sensation of being fresh. You only know layers. Sweat over soot, soot over salt, salt over the sour stench of wool that has never known soap. Bathing is a rumour for men like you. The lagoon is there, yes, wide and endless, but its water is more rot than relief. You've seen what floats on it. Dead fish with eyes milky as glass marbles, clots of refuse from kitchens, the casual piss of every alley. To dunk yourself in that is not to wash but to gamble. Sometimes a boy will strip and plunge anyway, desperate for coolness, and he'll crawl out shivering with slime clinging to his hair. 2 days later he coughs black, and everyone says the lagoon took its payment. So you avoid it, though the ache for cold water never leaves your bones. Instead, you scrub with rags, a strip of linen dipped into yesterday's cloudy jug, dragged across your neck, across the tender hollows of your arms, across your chest. It smears more than it cleans, lifting sweat only to lay ash back down. Your skin grows used to the film of it, a second hide you carry like shame. You itch constantly, so much that sometimes you wonder if glass dust itself has crawled beneath your flesh and is trying to cut its way out. At night you scratch until blood rises in thin dark threads. In the morning the scabs cling to your tunic like grit, another layer in the sediment of your life. Your teeth are another torment. They ache when you chew the hard bread, when you tear salted fish, when you bite onion sharp as knives. They blacken at the edges, gums swollen and tender, and sometimes bleed without provocation. You spit into the ash at your feet and watch the pink foam sink, like it belongs there. No one talks about it, but you've seen men lose their teeth by 30, gums collapsing inward until their mouths are caves, echoing with the sound of their breath. The fire teaches you to keep your lips shut, not just for silence, but to hide what's missing. Boils and sores bloom easily here. The heat makes sweat pool beneath scarves and belts, and the damp becomes disease. Red lumps rise along your thighs, your ribs, your armpits, angry little mouths that sting when your tunic rubs them. You lance them with a pin heated in the furnace itself, the pus hissing when it meets iron, the pain sharp but brief. Better to do it yourself than to let it swell until you cannot move without groaning. Everyone does it. Everyone carries the same scars, pale coins stamped into the flesh like badges of endurance. The cough never leaves. It is not illness in the ordinary sense. It is an inheritance. Ash scours your lungs day after day, and so you spit black in the morning, brown in the afternoon, red when the work is particularly cruel. Some men cough until their ribs ache, until blood speckles their lips, and then they return to the pipe, because stopping is worse than coughing. The cough becomes your companion, your lullaby, your prayer. You stop fearing it. Fear belongs to the silences between. Whispers of plague reach Murano the way everything else does, by boat, by rumour, by priestly sermon. You've heard of streets emptied, of carts piled with bodies, of doctors wearing masks shaped like birds. Sometimes the city across the water closes its gates, and you are left with the fire and the island and the suspicion that no one would come for you if sickness struck here. And in truth, who would? You are already half dead most days, your skin burned, your lungs blistered. The plague would only finish what the furnace began. And yet, you endure. You find ways. You chew fennel seeds when you can steal them, to sweeten the foulness of your mouth. You smear vinegar on your skin when sores spread too quickly, though the sting makes you cry out. You tie rosemary sprigs into your scarf, believing or half-believing that their scent might trick death into passing by. And sometimes, when the lagoon wind rises, carrying salt sharp enough to cut through the stink, you breathe deep and convince yourself for a moment that you are clean. But the truth is this: the workshop owns your body. It will strip it, boil it, foul it, until you are unrecognizable even to yourself. You are not a man with hygiene. You are a man with survival. Cleanliness here is not purity. It is illusion, fleeting as the shine on molten glass before it hardens and dulls. And so you scratch, you cough, you spit, you bleed, you carry the stink of ash and sweat like a cloak no one else wants. You stand beside men who stink the same, and together you build beauty that will leave this island and live in palaces where no one will ever smell you. That is the cruelest cleanliness of all, that your work will gleam pure while you rot, invisible behind it. Breathe slowly. The ash will settle. The sores will scab. The cough will quiet, if only for tonight. Rest now, before the furnace burns you open again tomorrow. Venice does not trust you. Not you, not any of the men bent over the furnace. Your skill is too valuable. Your secret's too dangerous. The Republic guards glass the way other kingdoms guard gold, and so punishment here is not an abstract thing. It hangs over you like the very smoke in the rafters, clinging to everything, unavoidable, breathed in with every lungful. The law is simple. You do not leave. Murano is your island, your prison. Once you have learned how to coax light into solid form, you belong to Venice forever. The masters say it plainly when they accept new apprentices. Your hands are no longer yours. They belong to the Republic. If you try to leave, if you try to carry your craft to another land, the punishment is death. Not a quiet death either. A knife in the canal, a noose strung discreetly, a body dumped where the tide can claim it. Everyone whispers about the assassins, men in hoods who work not for themselves, but for the city's hunger. You don't know if they're real. You don't need to. Fear doesn't require proof. Other punishments are more mundane, but no less cruel. Break a piece in the master's sight, and you might pay a fine that devours your week's bread. Spill wine in the workshop, and you'll spend a day hauling wood until your back cracks. Cough too loudly while a nobleman visits, and you'll feel the slap of the master's paddle across your ribs. These are not laws written in Venice's books, but they are laws written in your bruises, and that is enough. There are official punishments too. The bailiffs come sometimes, heavy with authority, their cloaks smelling of ink and salt. They demand coin for levies you barely understand, fines for rules you didn't know existed. You pay, because you must. If you protest, your furnace is closed, your tools seized, your name blackened. You have seen men reduced to beggars in a day, stripped of fire, stripped of trade, reduced to standing on corners coughing for alms. It takes nothing, an accusation, a whisper, a neighbour's jealousy, and your life collapses like glass dropped on stone. The master uses punishment as discipline, but it is never just about the mistake. It is about reminding you. When his voice barks, when his hand strikes, when his silence thickens into condemnation, it is the Republic speaking through him. You do not make glass for yourself. You do not live here for yourself. You exist at the pleasure of Venice, and Venice can unmake you as easily as the fire unmakes sand. And yet, punishment here is not always violent. Sometimes it is subtler. You can be shunned, ignored, denied a seat near the fire when the night is cold, given the worst heel of bread, The cut passed to you last, so the dregs are yours. These small cruelties gnaw more deeply than blows. You find yourself fearing silence at the bench more than the sting of leather. In silence you are erased. You think of justice sometimes. You hear priests preach about divine judgment, about sins weighed and souls redeemed, but the law you live under does not deal in redemption. It deals in fear. Venice does not care about your sins, only your secrets. Keep them or die with them. That is the law, and you accept it, because what choice do you have? You know the lagoon glitters with temptation, the thought of slipping away in a gondola, of rowing past the city, of carrying your skill to Florence, to Rome, to some distant court where kings might shower you with coin. You've imagined it at night, when the fire quiets and the rats whisper encouragement, but you've also imagined a knife at your back before you reach the shore. You've imagined your body bobbing in the tide, salt water filling the mouth that once blew life into glass. So you stay. You bow when the bailiffs come. You keep your head low when the master snarls. You swallow your anger with the same ease you swallow bad wine. Punishment here is not an event. It is the air. You live inside it. You breathe it. And when the furnace roars, when the master barks, when the Republic's shadow passes over your bench, you remind yourself of the quiet truth. The law cannot take what it never gave you. Your body, your breath, your scars. They were always yours, even if they will never matter to anyone but you. The pipe spins in your hands. The glass gathers. The day continues. The law watches, silent and satisfied, because you remain exactly where you are meant to be inside the fire, making beauty for others, punishment hovering like ash. Breathe slowly. Obey. Survive. That is the only law worth following. Rest now, before the next command finds your ears. The church bells reach Murano faint and thin, their sound stretched across the lagoon like fabric pulled too tight. When they strike, you pause, not out of devotion, not really, but out of habit. The bells mark hours the way the furnace does, except the furnace marks them with burns and sweat, and the bells with echoes that fade before you've even swallowed your next breath. Still, you bow your head, if only because everyone else does. Faith here is not the gold and incense of San Marco. It is not the jewelled altars or the sermons delivered in voices that carry over velvet pews. Faith here is ashen glass, scraps of muttered prayers whispered under scarves damp with sweat. The furnace itself feels like a god, though no priest would ever admit it. You feed it daily, you sacrifice skin to it, you bow before its roar, and in return it grants you creation. Sand becomes form, breath becomes eternal. If that is not a miracle, what is? And yet you never dare call it holy. To worship the fire openly would invite sin, and sin invites priests, and priests invite punishment. So you practice a double religion. The official one is for Sundays when you stumble into the chapel still smelling of smoke, your tunic clinging damp, ash falling from your hair like unholy snow. You kneel on stone worn by generations of other knees and stare at frescoes of saints who never sweated like you do, who never knew the furnace's breath on their faces. You mumble the paternoster, your lips cracked, your tongue thick with salt. The priest raises a goblet of wine, glass, maybe even Murano glass, and blesses it, never glancing at the blackened hands that made it. You take your place in line, bow your head and taste bread that is no softer than the crust you gnawed at dawn. You tell yourself this bread is different, sacred, but your teeth don't believe you. The other religion, the real one, is the quiet one, the superstition that lives in the cracks of the workshop, in the pauses between blows of breath. A sprig of rosemary tied into your scarf, to ward off coughing fits that might drown you. A quick sign of the cross before dipping the pipe into molten glass, because you've seen men burned too badly to return, and you don't trust your hands alone. A coin left on the windowsill, not for God, not for the master, but for the lagoon, so its tides don't take you with them one night. The furnace itself carries its own rituals. No one ever spits into it, not even in anger. not even by accident. To spit into fire is to invite it to spit back. And everyone has seen how fire spits sparks that land in eyes, drops of molten glass that scar legs. You bow when the first gather of the morning glows, not deeply, not obviously, but enough to acknowledge that this beast could take you if it wished. The younger boys cling to charms, bits of glass cooled into odd shapes, worn on cords around their necks, shards smoothed by water, carried in pockets. They whisper that these pieces keep them from burning. You know better. Burns come whether you believe or not, but you let them believe because belief is softer than fear, and in a place like this softness is rare. At night, when the coughing grows too loud and the rats perform their dances along the beams, someone always starts a prayer, sometimes to Mary, sometimes to a patron saint, sometimes just to no one in particular. The words ripple through the dark room like water over stone, catching here and there, fading, rising again. You join in, your own voice hoarse, because to pray together is to pretend you are more than men choking on ash. It is to pretend you might be seen, even if only for a heartbeat. But fear is its own religion. Fear of plague carried on the salt wind. Fear of knives in alleys. If you ever dared flee the island. Fear of waking one morning to find your hands shaking, no longer steady enough to blow, to shape, to serve. Fear of becoming useless, invisible, forgotten even among the forgotten. Fear teaches you devotion more powerfully than the priest ever could. And yet, sometimes, there is peace. The way sunlight filters through the workshop window, striking a cooled vessel so it gleams blue as sky. The way the lagoon breathes slow at night, its tide rocking the island like a cradle. The way, in rare moments, you feel your breath captured forever inside a vessel, your life preserved in fragile beauty that might outlive you. Those moments feel holy, even if no one dares name them so. So you bow at the chapel, and you bow at the furnace. You pray with Latin words you half remember, and you pray with silence, with steady hands, with each roll of the pipe. Religion and superstition blur together here, until you can no longer tell which is which. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe the only true faith is survival, and the only true miracle is that you are still standing when the day ends. The bells toll again, faint across the lagoon. You cross yourself with a hand blackened from soot and salt, and for a moment you wonder if even God can see you through the smoke. Rest now. Giuseppe prayed enough for today. By the time dinner comes, you are hollowed out like the very vessels you've spent all day making. The fire has chewed through your sweat, your breath, your patience, and left you with little more than a ringing in your bones. Your stomach gnaws at itself, a beast that never sleeps, but it waits until the work is done. Food here is not timed by the clock or the bell, it is timed by exhaustion. When the men begin to slow, when the master finally concedes that bodies bend before iron does, then and only then does dinner appear. The spread is as uninspired as the mornings, though heavier with fatigue. Bread again, of course, always bread, harder now, its crust like old wood left in the sun. You have learned the trick. Soak it in the thin broth that sometimes graces the bench, a watery stew of beans, cabbage, maybe a shred of pork fat if fortune has been careless. The bread surrenders then, breaking into damp clumps that slide down easier, though your teeth still ache from the effort. There is fish again, though less fresh than mornings, salted to the point where it tastes like chewing the lagoon itself. The bones catch between your teeth and remind you, with sharp little jabs, that nothing here is ever given without a cost. You spit one into your hand, set it aside, and wonder if the rats will find it later. They always do. Sometimes there is cheese, harder now, crumbling like chalk. It scratches at your tongue, leaves your mouth dry, but the taste of it, sharp, stubborn, feels almost like strength. Once in a while, a pot of lentils makes its way into the mix. Soft and mealy, the colour of dirt. You eat them greedily because they fill the stomach in a way bread never can. No one questions where they came from. Food is food. Questions are luxuries. Wine returns. Darker now. Or perhaps you are simply too tired to notice its thinness. It burns more than it soothes, but you drink anyway because it is wet, because it carries the illusion of warmth that is not the furnace's cruelty, but something gentler, kinder. You pass the jug on, wiping your mouth with the back of your hand, tasting iron and salt together. The men eat in near silence. Talking requires energy, and energy has been bartered away to the fire. The only sounds are the scrape of knives on wood, the wet tearing of bread, the soft grunt, when a man finally allows himself to sit back and let hunger loosen its grip. Occasionally a muttered joke slips out, something about the stew being thin enough to see Venice through it, or the bread being hard enough to patch the roof. But the laughter that follows is tired, cracked, little more than exhalations. You notice the apprentices eat fastest, shoving food in as though it might vanish. They have not yet learned the art of stretching each bite, of savouring the pretense of fullness. The older men chew slow, eyes half closed, making the moment last, as though by dragging out the meal they might drag out the day's end. You follow the older men. You always do. And yet, for all its meagreness, dinner brings a kind of fragile peace. The work is done for now. The furnace still glows, but its roar has dimmed to a steady hum, like a predator sated for the evening. Your arms rest on the bench, your fingers limp, your back slackening at last. You chew, you swallow, you breathe. The food may be bland, the bread stale, the wine sour, but it anchors you. It says, you have survived another day. Sometimes, rarely, a sweetness appears. A fig, dried and wrinkled, passed quietly from one hand to another. A few almonds, cracked open with a stone. Once a merchant brought oranges to the master, and their scent filled the room like a miracle. You didn't eat one. Of course not. But you held the peel someone discarded, pressed it to your nose, and breathed in until your head spun. For a heartbeat you imagined you were clean, alive in a world that tasted like light. Then the peel shriveled, and the smell was gone. Dinner ends the way all things do here abruptly. The food is gone, the jug empty, the bowls scraped. Men push back from the bench, groaning as their bodies remember how heavy they are. The scraps are swept aside for rats, and the room returns to its rhythm of coughs and silence. You lick the last smear of broth from your thumb and feel absurdly grateful. Because this meal, like all others, is not about satisfaction. It is about survival, and survival is enough. You lean back against the wall, belly not full but not empty, and let your breath slow. Outside, the lagoon sighs against stone. Inside, the furnace dreams its red dreams. You close your eyes and think, one more day finished, one more night to endure. You are still here, and for now, that is all that matters. Rest, if you can. Tomorrow the fire will call you again. When the scraps of dinner have been licked from fingers and the last coughs of the evening fade into the rafters, you lower yourself back to the straw that pretends to be a bed. The room is thick with heat still, though the furnace has quieted into a softer breath. Men around you are already collapsing into sleep, or something like it, their bodies falling heavy, their chests rising and sinking in the rhythm of exhaustion. You close your eyes and wait for the world to loosen its grip on you. Dreams here are not gifts. They are escapes, fragile little windows carved into the dark by a mind desperate to remember softness. And though most nights your sleep is shallow, broken by coughing or the scuttle of rats, sometimes dreams come, and when they do, they are cruel and tender both. You dream first of coolness. Not water, not yet, just the absence of fire, air that doesn't press against your face like a fist, a breeze moving through trees you haven't seen in years, rustling leaves that shine wet with dew. The sound of it is enough to make your body slacken. Even in sleep, you stretch out on damp grass, and for a moment the itch of wool and the sting of burns vanish. You breathe without ash. You wake gasping sometimes because even in your dreams you don't trust lungs to work so easily. Other nights, you dream of bread, not the heel-hard loaves of the workshop, but bread soft enough to leave fingerprints in, white and yielding, torn apart by hands that have never blistered. The taste lingers in your mouth even after you wake, sweet and clean. You almost hate those dreams, because the morning makes a mockery of them, thrusting stale crust back into your teeth. Still, you let the dream return whenever it wants. Hunger is easier to endure when your mind believes it has been fed. Sometimes you dream of the sea, not the lagoon with its sour breath, but the true sea, wide and glittering, rolling endlessly toward horizons you've never touched. In those dreams, you are not forbidden from leaving. You step into a boat, your hands unbound, and row until Venice shrinks into a toy city behind you. No assassins, no knives, no laws, only the water, and you, and a sky so vast it swallows every fear. You wake from those dreams with salt on your lips, though whether it is sweat or tears you never know. There are darker dreams too. The furnace appears often, reshaped by your sleeping mind into something monstrous. You are feeding it, as always, but no matter how much you give, it wants more. Wood, breath, skin, bone, it swallows all of it, roaring louder each time. In these dreams, your hands melt first, dripping from your arms like wax, your body consumed piece by piece, until you are nothing but glass yourself, clear and fragile, waiting to be shattered. You wake with your fists clenched, nails biting your palms, relieved to still feel flesh. And then there are dreams you never speak of. Dreams of women's voices in rooms that smell of rosemary instead of ash. Dreams of laughter that isn't cruel, of being seen not as hands but as a whole person. Dreams where someone looks at you the way people look at the glass you shape with wonder. These are the cruelest of all because they are the least likely to ever touch daylight. They vanish the moment you open your eyes, leaving only a hollow ache in the chest. Still, even cruel dreams are better than none. Without them, sleep would be nothing but blackness and coughs. The body twitching itself awake in panic. Dreams give shape to the darkness. They whisper that something else exists, even if only in fragments, even if only in lies. You roll on your side, the straw whispering against your ear, and you let yourself drift into whatever the night chooses to offer. Maybe it will be bread. Maybe it will be sea. Maybe only the furnace again, hungry even in your sleep. But for now you let go, because letting go is the only freedom you are allowed. And as your body surrenders, as your breath evens, as the fire's glow paints the inside of your eyelids red, you drift into dreams, brief, fragile mercies that remind you are still human, if only when your eyes are closed. Rest now. Dream what you must. The fire will be waiting when you wake. Death here is not a distant visitor. It sleeps in the straw beside you, coughs in the lungs of the man across the room, hangs in the air like the smoke that never clears. You do not fear it in the way nobles fear it, wrapped in velvet and prayers. You fear it the way you fear splinters and burns, close, daily, inevitable. The furnace could kill you, of course. It waits for a stumble, a slip of grip, a gather too heavy for your arms, one wrong turn, and molten glass slides down like sunlight turned deadly, splashing across your skin. You've seen it happen. A man screaming, his arm lacquered in glowing amber, that cools into a scar he will carry to his grave. Some never rise after burns that deep. Their flesh blackens, their blood turns sour, and within days they vanish into the silence of the workshop. The smoke could kill you too. You inhale ash every day until your spit runs black and your chest rattles like pebbles in a jar. Some men cough until they bleed, their lungs rotting from the inside, the furnace having claimed them without flame. They grow thinner, their eyes dimmer, their coughs louder, until one morning their straw bed does not stir. The others roll away, leaving space for a new apprentice. That is all. The lagoon could kill you. Not its water, though it stinks enough to drown you in sickness. But the tides, the way they creep up stone steps and sweep careless feet away. Drunk men fall in often, staggering back from taverns, and their bodies are fished out bloated and green, mouths still open in surprise. You think of them each time you rinse your hands in the scum. The Republic could kill you. If you tried to leave Murano, if you whispered secrets of glass beyond these canals, if you thought too boldly of freedom. They say assassins patrol the shadows, knives sharp as shears, blades slipped between ribs in alleys, bodies vanish as quietly as a goblet shattering, noise for a moment, silence forever after. You believe it because everyone does. Belief itself is enough to keep you still. Fever could kill you. It comes sudden, like flame licking at dry straw. One night you sweat, tossing on your sack of straw, and the next morning your body is a furnace you cannot escape. Priests mutter about sin, neighbours mutter about plague, and soon your bed is dragged outside, straw and all, to keep you from infecting the rest. Some recover, many do not. The smell of fever-sick skin is something you will never forget, though you try. A knife could kill you, not a nobleman's knife. He has no need but another man's, a rival's, someone who envies your place at the furnace, your share of bread, your chance to breathe another day. Men fight in silence here. Knives flashing in the dark corners of the island, then vanish into the lagoon's shadows. No one speaks of it after. The rats keep those secrets. Childbirth kills women you will never see, but you hear the stories whispered in chapels and alleys. Blood, fever, silence. You know that if you were born female you might already be gone. In a way you count that absence as another form of death, what you never had to face, what others always must. And there are quieter deaths. The slow wasting of hunger when bread runs thin, the drowning despair of men who drink too much wine too quickly, their bodies rotting under the weight of cheap mercy. The quiet collapse of a man whose hands begin to shake, too unsteady to hold the pipe, his usefulness gone, his identity melted away. That man is already dead, even as he coughs among you. So what could kill you? Everything. Anything. The fire, the smoke, the water, the law, the body itself. You live surrounded by 1,000 thin threads, any one of which might snap and send you tumbling into the dark. And yet you rise each day. You walk toward the furnace. You put your lips to the pipe. You breathe. Because in truth, death is already here. You carry it in your lungs, in your burns, in your bones. It is simply patient, waiting for the moment when you can no longer barter another breath. You do not bargain with death. You bargain with time. One more day, one more vessel, one more meal, one more night of dreams that are not enough. And as you lie down again, the furnace's glow painting your eyelids red, you accept this truth. What could kill you is everywhere. What keeps you alive is only stubbornness. Rest now if you can. Tomorrow the same threads will wait, ready to snap. There are whole worlds beyond Murano that you will never touch. You hear of them sometimes in the half-boasts of merchants, in the mutters of sailors who drink away their coin on the island, in the hymns of priests who claim to know the reach of heaven itself. But for you, those worlds are mist on the lagoon, shimmering, unreachable, dissolving when you try to grasp them. You will never see the true ocean. The lagoon is your prison, its water green and thick, its tides no more than a slow breath. You hear sailors speak of waves taller than towers, of blue water so endless it breaks the mind, of storms that roll like gods in fury. You imagine it at night, the swell, the crash, the roar, and then you wake, and the only water is the canal outside, sluggish and foul, carrying scraps of cabbage and fish guts. For you the ocean is only rumour, never horizon. You will never see the Alps, though they rise not so far beyond Venice. Men speak of snow, of peaks so high they scrape heaven, of cold so clean it burns. Snow to you is ash, white, falling, staining everything. You think perhaps real snow must feel the same, damp on the tongue, soft on the hand, but you will not know. The farthest your feet travel is from bench to bed, from latrine to furnace. Distance itself is a luxury reserved for others. You will never see the books that scholars pore over in the palaces of Venice. You know letters perhaps, or perhaps not. It hardly matters. Your hands are steady enough for glass, not for ink. You hear whispers of great libraries, shelves groaning with words that can conjure empires, saints, the very stars. But your words are in your lungs, breathed into vessels that others will hold, never knowing the syllables of your name. Your books are cups and beads and mirrors, all destined for eyes that will never meet yours. You will never see love as poets write it. There are women, yes, faces glimpsed in markets, voices carried on the breeze, sometimes a glance, sometimes the briefest smile, though you never know if it is for you or someone behind you. Desire burns, quick and sharp, but love, the kind that lingers like cool water on a fevered brow, you suspect it belongs to another life entirely. Perhaps love is like snow and oceans and books, a thing spoken of by others, never meant for you. You will never see yourself as you truly are. There are mirrors, yes, polished with care, shining bright as water, but they are not yours. They leave the island, carried to nobles who marvel at their own faces in the glass you bled for. You catch yourself sometimes in a scrap of reflection, distorted in a cooled shard, twisted in the curve of a vessel, and the face that looks back is half stranger, half ghost. You never see the whole of you, only fragments, broken images. You will never see freedom. That word is as distant as the stars overhead, faint and mocking. You belong to the Republic, to Murano, to the fire. You were bound the day you first blew breath into molten sand, and you will die bound, your lungs full of ash, your hands scarred beyond use. The world beyond Venice will remain a story told by men who come and go, men who eat from your glass and sail away without ever knowing you. But in the quiet, in the thin silver hours between cough and sleep, you sometimes imagine, you close your eyes and picture what you will never see. The ocean rolling, the mountain snow falling, a page of words unfolding like a secret meant only for you, a face leaning close in kindness, your own reflection, whole and unbroken, freedom in whatever shape it might wear. And though you will never hold these things, the imagining itself feels like a kind of seeing, a dream pressed into the soft wax of your mind, enough to make your chest ache, enough to remind you you are still human, still alive, still capable of wanting. The furnace cannot take that from you. The law cannot forbid it. Death cannot burn it away. Rest now. In your dreams, if nowhere else, you may see what the world has denied you. When your hands finally fail, when the cough grows too deep, when the heat hollows you out for the last time, there will be no ceremony. Men will carry you from the straw, as they have carried others, silent, faces set not with sorrow but with the grim acceptance of routine. Death is not special here. It is as common as burns, as ordinary as bread. The furnace roars the same, whether you breathe or not. The fire does not pause to mourn. What you leave behind will not be your name. Names vanish quickly on Murano. They are muttered less and less until even the echo dissolves into smoke. No ledger will hold you. No stone will mark you. The Republic does not care for the memory of hands, only for the survival of secrets. When you are gone, another apprentice will take your place at the bench, breathing where you once breathed, sweating into the scarf you left damp and stiff. You leave behind your bones, buried shallow or sunk into water, gnawed by rats or swallowed by earth. Bones that once spun molten glass, bones that turned to ash from within, long before they found their grave. The body goes quickly here, worn thin by fire and hunger, but bones are stubborn. They may linger a little longer, whispering faintly in the soil, though no one bends to listen. You leave behind the glass. That is all. The vessels shaped by your breath will travel further than you ever could. A goblet you rolled between your palms may one day shine in a palace feast, wine shimmering within, nobles laughing into its rim. A bead you strung will rest against a woman's throat, warming with her skin, carrying her secrets, not yours. A mirror you polished will reflect countless faces, faces rich, painted, proud, none of them yours. The glass will gleam, centuries perhaps, while your name is dust. And yet in every piece you remain. Your lungs are there, caught in the bubble of air, sealed forever in the curve of a goblet. Your sweat is there, cooled into the sheen of a bead. Your scars are there, etched invisibly into the lines of a mirror's frame. No one will know it, but you will have lived inside beauty that outlives you. The cruelest truth is also the gentlest. Your death will mean nothing, but your work may mean everything. You leave behind rumours, perhaps. A boy might remember the way you swore under your breath when the bread cut your gums. A fellow worker might recall how your hands never trembled, even on your worst days. The rats might carry away your last crumb of bread, a final offering to their arithmetic. And then those too will fade. The workshop forgets quickly. The fire remembers nothing. But still, you leave behind the quiet fact that you endured, that you woke each day, tied the scarf, fed the fire, shaped the glass, and slept again. That you lived in this furnace world, unseen, unpraised, and yet alive, stubbornly alive, until you no longer could. That endurance is your legacy, even if no one names it. And so, when your breath leaves you at last, it will not vanish. It will live on, trapped inside some vessel shining faintly on a distant shelf. Someone will lift it to the light, marvel at its clarity, drink from it, never knowing the life sealed within. That is what you leave behind. Not glory, not memory, only glass. Rest now. Your work is finished. The fire does not stop, even when you do. It burns on without you, swallowing wood, turning sand to honey, exhaling its long orange breath into a night that does not care. The men continue, their bodies bending in the same rhythm, their lungs giving themselves away piece by piece. You are gone, but the furnace remains, eternal as tide, greedy as hunger. No bells toll for you. No procession crosses the canals. Perhaps your body is lowered into a shallow grave. Perhaps it drifts into the lagoon where water and ash meet as equals. Rats gnaw, soil swallows, water carries. And still Venice glitters, gondolas slide, nobles sip from the glass that holds your ghost. You are not remembered by name. That was never promised. Names are fragile, and you lived among fragility. What endures is what you touched. The curve of a goblet cooling in some palace chamber, the faint bubble of breath caught in a bead worn on a stranger's wrist, a mirror glinting with faces that will never imagine yours. You are there invisibly, a phantom sealed into light. What drifts away is everything else. The cough, the burns, the sour wine, the endless itch of wool, the hunger that clawed your belly, the stink of the pit latrine, the weight of the blowpipe in your tired hands. These things fade as the smoke faded each night, curling upward, breaking apart, vanishing into a sky that never looked back. And in that vanishing, there is peace. You do not need memory. You do not need monuments. You do not need forgiveness. You gave your body to fire, your breath to glass, your life to survival. And in the end, you did survive. For as long as breath was possible, that is enough. That has always been enough. Now the lagoon is quiet. The stars prick faint holes into the fabric of the night. The furnace hums. Softer now, distant, almost kind. No one remembers your name, but that's all right. There are no wolves at the door, no cold in your bones. The day has ended. You have endured it. Sleep now.